go into new bottles. The new wine can only go into new bottles. Because the reason that it needs to be new, we heard, because it'll burst out and spill all over. So that thought, that understanding, that revelation, that epiphany needs to go into a new bottle of you. You are that new bottle. And going over this thought came to me. What makes us a new bottle in many ways? Yes, we get cleansed by the blood, we're new. We get renewed in our spirit. We get renewed in our mind. But in this place of receiving a new thought and being a new bottle, what takes us there? In the ability to be open to learn something, if it be salvation, if it be a different perspective, is trials, storms, hard times, challenges. When we go through hard times, when we go through challenges, it makes us see things different. But when we're not in these areas of being challenged, many times we're not open to hear anything. And I'm going to give you some examples. But some of your thinking and some of your understandings that you have now that you didn't have before, you wouldn't have accepted if you didn't go through some of the things you've been through. I'm going to say that again. Some of your thinking now, some of your understanding now, you would not accept it years back if you would not have went through what you've gone through. But because you've gone through certain things, it's caused you to see things differently. This thought crosses my mind. I don't know if it crosses yours. But sometimes I think, God, why couldn't I have learned this before? Why couldn't I have known this back here? Why did I learn it in this phase of my life? What if I would have learned it at this phase of my life? And this is why. Because at other phases of my life, I wouldn't have accepted it. But because of trials and storms, challenges, between a rock and a hard place, it opens us up to see things differently. I'm saying this as an example to this, not in a place of woe is me. But I look at the place of my life today and the challenges of my life today and things that I have to endure, the cross I have to bear. And I look at myself and say, 10 years ago, I couldn't do what I'm doing today. And I don't mean stand behind the pulpit and preach. The life I live today, I wouldn't be able to have had to do 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, I wouldn't have accepted what I carry today. I wouldn't have accepted it. But because of certain challenges and storms and things that have come to my life, it's caused me to see things and reevaluate things differently. So now I'm doing things I wouldn't have done 10 years ago. Certain ways, certain things that were taught and still taught in many ways, and I'm not talking doctrine. I'm talking that this is how a pastor lives and this is how it's supposed to be, and the church's supposed to do everything for you and take care of everything, and the saints take care of your house and they mow your lawn and all that sounds good. It sounds good. But in many ways, it's not realistic For some, maybe it is. But in other ways, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. And I don't want to get into all the details there. But there's just certain things, if I can say, a man has to do what a man has to do. And I'll say that again. A man has to do what a man has to do. Be it a pastor, be it the one that sweeps the parking lot, whatever it is, a man has to do what a man has to do. And somebody say, what do you mean by that? You got to go to work even when you don't want to go to work. You got to do some things you don't want to do. You got to go some places you don't want to go. You have to say some things you don't want to say, but a man has to do what a man has to do. So many pastors live in an isolated, secluded cell of a life, disconnected. They come out and show in this environment, and they go right back into their cave, their cubby hole, and set up this sterile environment. And is there anything wrong with that? For some, maybe it's okay. For me, it's not. Why is it not? Because I have to be connected. I don't want to be secluded and isolated in life, because life is life. Well, there's sin out there. Well, if that sin is so powerful that it's going to wipe me out, then I'm doing something wrong. If that sin is so powerful that I can't come out of my little walled, sheltered life, then maybe it's not everyone else then. And I'm just saying that sometimes you got to get out in the real world. Some things that wasn't understood about Jesus. Because the way he got out there. Look at him. Look who he eats with. Look who he hangs around with. And people use this in the church, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, which is not a biblical statement. In other words, if you hang around with people that don't know the Lord, that means you don't know the Lord. But anyways, that's a different perspective, but I don't agree with it. But many times you got to go out into places that maybe you don't want to go and do things you don't want to do, but a man has to do what a man has to do. But 10 years ago, I saw things a lot different than I see today. I know some people say, well, that's not a good thing. Well, this is what happens when you go through challenges and trials and storms. You begin to see things a little different. And I want you to think about this. I'm a friend of God. God had a friend, and his name was Abraham. And God told his friend Abraham, I want you to take your promised son, and I want you to take him up there, and I want you to sacrifice him. Think about that. Think about that new wine, that new thought given to Abraham. I'm going to take this promised son after all the things we've been through, and you want me to sacrifice him? Of course. You do what God says, right? How many of you can sacrifice your son? How many of you are willing to sacrifice your son and to hear from God to do that? This is my thinking. A younger Abraham wouldn't have been able to accept that. But an older Abraham that had gone through some trials was like, if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. And the father of faith, yes. But what did he say? He said, I have enough faith that God will raise him back up.